To the explainer. Today, we're breaking down a really dark, atmospheric piece of village folklore from the accounts of LNK-TV. We're diving straight into the legend of the Rajatpur village curse. It's this story that masterfully blends cultural superstitions, ancestral rituals, and just pure midnight terror. If you're into understanding the mechanics of local myths and the strict, unbreakable rules that govern them, you're in for a really fascinating ride.
Section 1. The Rajatpur Amavasya Curse. Let's get right into it. So, to really understand this curse, we've got to set the scene in this remote, hilly village of Rajapur. On Amavasya, which is the pitch-black night of the new moon, the streets are completely dead by 10 p.m. Nobody is out, and the reason everyone hides indoors? It all comes down to this terrifying auditory cue. Thuk-thuk, thuk-thuk. It's the unmistakable sound of a wooden stick just repeatedly striking the ground. The source material actually opens with this brilliant jump scare where a frightened villager hears that sound, literally sprints into his home and barricades the door. But here's the chilling twist. He quickly realizes the entity wasn't even coming for him. The real targets that night were actually a couple named Madan and Mira. So why them? Well, this brings us to the actual mechanics of the curse. See, survival in Rajapur on a new moon requires a very specific non-negotiable protective ritual right outside the front door. But Madan and Mira couldn't do it. They were in the middle of a 40-day mourning period, known as Sutak, where religious prayers and rituals are strictly forbidden. And because their door was left totally unprotected, the entity left a gruesome TOTKA, basically a dark magic hex, right on their doorstep. This hex was made of black cloth, lemon, chilies, mustard, vermilion, and, terrifyingly, fresh drops of blood.
And the consequences of this hex are absolute. When the villagers finally opened the couple's door the next morning, they found both Madan and Mira lifeless on the floor. The physical state they were in was horrific. Their eyes had rolled completely back into their heads, turning entirely white, and their tongues had turned blue and were just hanging from their mouths. This gruesome discovery basically cemented the absolute terror this entity holds over the region. No matter what was happening in a family's life, that protective ritual became a non-negotiable must-do.
Section 2. Origins of the Witch. Now, you might be wondering, how does this quiet, idyllic village become the hunting ground for such a vicious spirit? Well, it stems from deep generational trauma. About 30 years ago, a mother lost her son and was just driven mad by grief. Desperate, she actually learned dark tantric magic and started placing these lethal totkas outside homes on new moon nights. She believed that sacrificing entire families would somehow bring her son back to life. When the village found out what she was doing, mob justice took over, and they killed her right at the crossroads. But death only untethered her spirit. For a whole decade, she terrorized them as a vengeful ghost, until 20 years ago, a revered local priest stepped in. He mandated a specific countermeasure, performing a puja and drawing a sacred swastik symbol outside the door. This symbol's positive energy acted like an impenetrable barrier. And that brings us right to the present day, where a group of unsuspecting city teenagers are visiting their relatives, totally oblivious to this bloody history.
Section 3. An incomplete ritual.
Okay, so the tension really ramps up here when an unexpected accident happens. The uncle, Mahesh, takes a bad fall down the stairs and gets a severe head injury, forcing his wife Savitri to rush him to the hospital. She has to leave the visiting city teenagers alone in the house just as the sun is setting on Amavasya. But before leaving, she gives them 3 hyper-specific, super strict instructions. 1. Complete the evening puja. 2. Draw the swastik outside the door. And 3. Lock all windows and doors immediately. As the audience, we know their survival hinges entirely on following these exact steps to the absolute letter.
But as we all know, panic and unfamiliarity breed mistakes, right? As the eldest sister, Rajani, goes to pick up the prayer plate, a piece of camphor just slips and drops to the floor. In the frantic confusion and their desperate rush to get back inside before total darkness hits, they do the prayer, but they completely forget step 2. They completely forget to draw the swastik. They lock the doors tight, feeling totally safe while unknowingly sealing their own fate. The barrier was never activated.
Section 4. The Midnight Attack. So now it's midnight, and the devastating consequences of that single forgotten symbol are about to unfold. The youngest sister, Sonali, wakes up feeling super thirsty. She leaves her bedroom and heads to the kitchen. And then, there it is again, the auditory cue. Thuk, thuk. But this time, it is not echoing out in the empty village streets. It is coming from inside the house. the entity bypassed the locked doors entirely because that spiritual lock, the swastik, was missing. Sonali turns around and comes face to face with absolute horror. This incredibly old, wrinkled woman in a black sari holding a wooden stick. Suddenly the woman's eyes roll back, becoming just pools of pitch black, and she utters this terrifying truth to Sonali. I haven't hunted in years. I won't let my prey escape today. Sonali tries to bolt for the front door, but she's trapped. The incredible irony here is that she's trapped inside by the exact same doors her siblings heavily locked to keep the danger out. The witch pounces. Sonali's blood-curdling screams finally wake up her siblings. They rush out of their room, but the hallway is dead empty. Total panic sets in as they face a really terrifying question. Where could Sonali possibly disappear to at midnight in a fully locked house? They frantically search every single room, and the tension is just rising by the second. Eventually, they pull open the door to the storeroom. The light bulb is violently flickering, and right there in the corner, they find Sonali, lifeless. Her hair is wildly disheveled, her eyes have rolled back, and her tongue is hanging out. It's the exact same horrific signature left on Madan and Mira. For the teenagers, this tragic discovery confirms that the stories weren't just some rural superstition. The witch is very real. She has breached their home, and they are literally locked inside with her.
Section 5. Power of the Hanuman Idol.
At this point, things reach an absolute boiling point. Jatin, absolutely terrified for his remaining siblings, calls the village priest, Banu Kaka, for help. The priest immediately realizes their fatal mistake, but before he can even offer a solution, the phone line goes totally dead. Suddenly, there is a loud knock at their bedroom door. Thinking it's the priest coming to save them, Jatin completely ignores the folklore rule of never opening a door on Amavasya, and he unlocks it. Actually, scratch that, he throws it open. But it's not the priest, it's the witch. She immediately overpowers Jatin, violently attacking him out in the hallway. From inside the room, Ragini watches her brother being torn apart and screams, "Please let me go. She will kill my brother," while the other brother, Varun, is trying to hold her back out of sheer paralyzing terror, locking the bedroom door again just to save themselves. But Rajni refuses to just sit there and let her brother die. In this incredible moment of bravery, she grabs a small, divine idol of Lord Hanuman from the room's little shrine. She throws open the door, rushes directly at the witch, and presses the idol right against the entity. The reaction is instantaneous. The witch shrieks in absolute agony as the divine touch literally burns her. In a frantic panic, she vanishes straight through the solid wall to the outside. Rajani quickly pulls her bleeding brother inside and places the idol right at the doorway, securing the house through sheer courage and faith. Talk about a game changer.
Section 6. The Final Purge. This single act of defiance fundamentally shifts the entire power dynamic of the village. When the priest, Banu Kaka, hears what Ragini did, it changes his whole perspective. Think about it. For 3 decades, the villagers' past was defined by passive survival, hiding behind locked doors, utterly paralyzed by the fear of this dark magic. But Banu Kaka has a profound realization. If a young city girl with zero knowledge of the occult can repel the witch using just simple faith, then divine power is infinitely stronger than the witch's dark power. Why on earth have they been hiding when they could fight back?
Armed with this empowering realization, the priest and his disciples march straight to the village temple in the dead of the Amavasya night. They throw the temple doors wide open. They ignite the Yagyakund, the holy fire pit, and start loudly reciting the Bajrang Ban, a powerful protective hymn. This intense spiritual energy acts like a massive magnet, drawing the screaming, agonizing witch straight into the temple courtyard. In one final epic move, a disciple throws a purifying splash of holy water, Ganga Jal, directly onto her. She writhes in pain, dissolving into this thick black smoke that gets sucked right into the sacred fire, vanishing into the night sky forever.
So, the resolution of our source material is deeply bittersweet. The curse of Rajatpur is permanently broken. The village is finally safe from the Totkas, and no one will ever have to hide in terror on a new moon night again. But the victory is incredibly heavy. The cost of their freedom, and really the cost of a single forgotten step in a ritual, was completely devastating.
Which leaves us with this final, lingering thought. If Sonali hadn't stepped out of her room for that glass of water, could she have been saved? Even with the swastik forgotten, was it her movement that triggered the hunt? It is a chilling reminder of how fragile the line between safety and tragedy can be in these folklore tales, and the heavy, irreversible price of forgetting a seemingly simple tradition. Thank you so much for joining me to break down this terrifying story. Stay curious, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.